In this video, we're going to take a look at edge loops. We have multiple ways that we can insert an edge loop. And what we're referring to here is an edge that continues all the way around our model. And you can see that we pretty much have an entire model of edge loops. This is good. So if I were to right click and go to edge and double click, you can see that we have our line of symmetry there is a nice edge loop that goes all the way around the model. Now, it breaks as far as selection is concerned inside of Maya because we have these intersecting faces that come in through here. That's just a selection thing. If we double click here, we can see that that edge loop goes all the way around. So we really want edge loops because they help keep the integrity of the model and make it much easier for us to add detail. They also heavily contribute to how the model deforms. We're talking about deformation, how the character will actually animate. So let's take a look. We're going to continue with the modeling toolkit. And we have a couple of different tools here that we can use. And actually, we'll probably branch out a bit. And let me take a look here. Let's start with the Insert Edge Loop tool, which is not located inside the modeling toolkit. But we'll take a look and see how these tools compare to one another, what we see under the mesh tools and what we see over there in the modeling toolkit. I'm going to click on Insert Edge Loop tool, and I can click on my model, and I'm still holding the left mouse button down. This gives me an interactive view of where that edge loop is going to be placed. I'm going to position this so it's roughly halfway inserted into my model. Now we have some options with our Insert Edge Loop tool, and we can add these options before we insert the edge loop or after. Really doesn't make too much of a difference. We'll have the same results in the end. So this particular guy right here, Insert with Edge Flow, this is what I'm going to play around with. This is the tool settings if I were to add an additional edge loop. But since I've already added it, I'm going to go into my attribute editor and take a look at my construction history. Now, when we insert an edge loop, it actually comes through as a poly split ring. So it doesn't say insert edge loop. That's not going to be one of my tabs here. But if you ever get confused, you can kind of cross back to the channel box. And with the shape node selected there, or even the model, you'll still see it. The very top input is what you just added. So you can always see what you're doing, and so that you get an idea of what was done previously. So right here, poly split ring, that's the last thing I added. And I can go click on that history and take a look in the history stack of what's actually happening. This is all of the features that were applied with this tool. Insert with edge flow is turned off. I want to turn that on, and let's get up close so we can see what this does. We'll click, and boom, that pushes the geometry out. And the only reason why it's doing it is because it's trying to conform with the shape of the object. So that pushes out pretty nicely. We can go in and type in a value, and in this case, we can actually exceed a value of 1 and give my crow some nice thickness as that pulls out. And then I'll just back out of that tool there. We don't want to continue just yet. So now I want to insert another edge loop. I'm going to return this back to 1. 2 will be a little bit too extreme there. And let's go to my mesh tool, insert edge loop. This time, let's make sure insert with edge flow is turned on, and we'll insert another edge loop. Now, what I'm doing is I need some extra geometry here. 1, we want it so that the crow's body is a bit more rounded. 2, we want it to have enough geometry on the side of his body so that we can extrude out the wing. So this edge loop that we've already inserted will be the bottom of the wing, and I'm going to insert another one. We'll go right about here, and that'll be the top of the wing. So these faces right here are what I can pull out. And you can see that that edge loop goes all the way around my model. Now we can switch, and let's go ahead and extrude some faces out. I'm going to close this toolbox up, get some more screen real estate here. And I'm going to switch to faces by just right mouse clicking and choosing face from my marking menu. I'm going to select all three of those faces there, which is going to give me the other side because our mirror geometry is still activated. And we'll choose extrude. And we'll pull that out there. Let's switch to our front view here. And that gives me one segment there. And I'll hit G to repeat the command. And we can extrude again. And G again, extrude that out. Now I have all of those extrusions. And so now I'm going to taper this down a little bit. So I'm just selecting those faces individually. And we'll just kind of scale this a little bit. Gets a little awkward because we're not scaling in a straight line there, a little crooked. Now I'm going to insert some extra edge loops. And we can spend some time here to shape the wing, obviously, because it's a pretty awkward shape as it is. But let's get some more geometry in here. I'm going to select this edge loop, just hit W. We'll just give this just a bit of scale. Let's just raise this up just a bit. So I'm going to insert another edge loop, and we're going to switch back to perspective here. Now I'm going to select this face and then double click to select the next face, which will give me the entire loop. We could have done this with the extrude, but I just want to show you some of these other tools here that are inside of our modeling toolkit. With all of the faces selected in a loop, I can choose Connect. Connect will give me that preview, and if I middle mouse and drag, it will give me additional segments. And that's just because it's defaulting over here to segments. If I choose Slide, all this being interactive, we can then slide that loop into a different location. Maybe we'll keep it down here just a little bit closer to the body. And then we also have Pinch, but we're going to need some more segments there. And then if I go to Pinch, you can see how that works, pushing or pinching closer to the surface or the border edge of the faces that it's actually splitting. I don't really need any of that, so I'm just going to return those back to defaults there and just take a segment of one. Now when I'm done with the tool, hit Enter, and that will complete it and insert my edge loop. I'm going to insert another edge loop, and I'm going to go back to my Insert Edge Loop tool and make sure that Insert with Edge Flow is turned on. And I'm going to go to this face here, and I'm going to click, still holding the left mouse button down. And I just kind of want to get that guy right in the middle there. We'll just let that go. And that edge flow, raised it up a little bit. Switch back to the attribute editor to the front here. We can manually alter that weight. So if I wanted to make sure that it was dead center and I already inserted my edge loop, we can just go into the weight inside the attribute editor and just type in a value. And that will make sure that it stays dead center. And that weight is just weighting it to one side or the other of the edge that we just split or the edge that we're inserting that loop into. So just a little bit of cleanup here. I'm going to deselect these faces and deselect the faces that are on the back of the bird. And I'm just going to scale this out just a touch because we want to make the wing here kind of taper off. So we can just kind of scale it up, do something like that. All right, so I'm going to spend some time reshaping this so that we get a better looking wing. And this will conclude our video on Insert Edge Loop.